100 years. That's the dream, right? We all want to live to at least 100 productive years. That's 36,500 days. So longevity isn't something that we chase at the end. We build it one day at a time, and it adds up. So then the question is, what is the daily plan to live longer? The good thing is there is already a plan. It's already written to our DNA. And that plan actually tells every cell in our body to prepare, perform, repair, and refuel every single day. And when these rhythms get together, then we have what is called circadian rhythm. So, for example, those of you who are lucky enough to go to bed around 10 o'clock last night, right after falling asleep, you got into your deep sleep. Your growth hormone spiked. And then after a while, your brain cleansed, so that's lymphatic cleaning. And then, few hours before waking up, your body began to warm up a little bit. And after waking up with a little bit of light, your melatonin levels begin to fall. And in the morning, your cortisol, the stress hormone, spikes so that you're ready for the day. Your bowel movement is most likely in the morning, and then your peak insulin sensitivity happens. So that means that's when your body is ready to have a big breakfast. And shortly after that, around noon, is the best time for your executive function. The mind is sharpest around noon, and then your muscle tone begins to build up, where you're more flexible, and is the best time for exercise. And after that, you feel more hungry. Then, as the evening rolls in, your melatonin begins to rise, your body cools down, and you are ready for another evening of restful night sleep. So that's the rhythm. But then the question is, how do we master this? And why this is important? What we're finding is when we have a strong circadian rhythm, that actually helps optimize our immune system so that we can fight infectious disease much better. It boosts our repair function so that if we're injured, then we can actually get back to full play much sooner. And it balances our brain function so that we live at our peak emotional and intellectual performance. And most importantly, a strong circadian rhythm actually boosts our metabolism and detoxification and repair function in every part of our body, so that we live at a significantly low risk for many diseases that affects our old age and limits our longevity. So then the question is, how do we actually learn the circadian rhythm? So just like driving, that involves only 3 skills, basically. How to push the pedal, how to steer, and apply brake. So I'll share with you just 3 circadian driving skills. And that's light, when to eat, and when to exercise. As simple as that. Because when you master these 3 skills, then everything else about your health falls right into its place without having you to micromanage them. So the first thing, light. We are actually creatures of day and night. Day is for performance, and nighttime is for repair and rejuvenation. And this rhythm is so imprinted to our life that we forget sometimes. Even newborn babies, whom we think don't have a rhythm, they actually have a strong rhythm. It's just in a stealth mode. So, for example, when in neonatal ICUs, the premature babies are kept under constant light, then we know that they take days, weeks to grow much better so that they can come home. But some doctors in Mexico City did a very simple thing. They decided to dim down the light for 12 hours in the evening. And then miracle happened. Now these babies, their circadian rhythm of growth and repair kicked in. They grow much faster, and they got out of hospital almost 2 weeks earlier than the babies which are on constant light. So now imagine the scale. In the US alone, in every 90 seconds, a baby is born preterm. That's 380,000 babies a year. Just by giving a sense of day and night in a neonatal ICU, We can actually save millions of hospital days and at least $1 trillion in healthcare spending in 2 decades. But more importantly, babies will grow faster so that they can come home to the arms of their loving parents. So light is not only for babies. In fact, 20 years ago, we discovered a new light sensor. That's called melanopsin. It's a blue light sensor. Our eyes contain around 10,000 of these specialized light sensors. And they're very different from the light sensors we use to see our world. Because these sensors need a lot of light. So that's why when our ancestors got out of bed and had to go hunting or farming, then they got a lot of daylight that activates this blue light sensing mechanism that synchronizes the circadian clock, and then it increases alertness, reduces depression, because these light sensors are literally hardwired to at least 12 different brain regions that control circadian rhythm, sleep, alertness, and mood. And at night time, since our ancestors didn't have too much light, the candlelight and firelight was just enough to see, but it was not enough to activate melanopsin. So as a result, our ancestors had natural rise in melatonin and they could have a good night's sleep. But the modern days are very different because in the evening we are exposed to a lot of light and rectangular pieces of glowing objects, and that activates our melanopsin, it puts a brake on melatonin, and we cannot sleep. And during daytime, we're actually stuck indoor because indoor, this amount of light is not enough to activate our melanopsin system. So as a result, we have sleep problem at night time, and then we have foggy brain during daytime. We try to beat it with cups of coffees, but it doesn't work. Because when it continues from weeks, months, or years, then it increases the risk for many of the psychiatric diseases. So that's why there is a new thing called the light revolution. Because now there is human-centric lighting that will actually help to brighten up the light with the right amount of blue light during the day and dim it down at nighttime. And in fact, this daily cycle of light and dim light is so powerful that it's like medicine. In many European countries, now doctors are writing prescription for the dose, duration, and timing of bright light to treat depression, anxiety, and many other psychiatric conditions. And even for older adults who have mild to moderate dementia, bright light therapy seems to improve their sleep and also reduce many of the symptoms. But anyways, for all of us, there's only one simple rule. During daytime, get at least 1 hour of daylight. You don't have to be looking at the sun. Even today, in this stormy weather, if you go outdoor, you get enough light, 10,000 lux of light, and that's enough to lift our mood, reduce depression, and crank up our circadian rhythm. So the next is timing of food. So almost 10 years ago, my lab made a big discovery, which was like surprising because we realized that circadian clock doesn't only tell us when to sleep and when to wake up. It actually tells us when to eat and when to fast. So for example, if we eat all our food within 8, 9, 10, or maximum 12 hours, then our body is most effective in digestion, absorption, and use of the nutrient to nurture our body. And outside of it, when we fast, it triggers cells to repair themselves, detoxify themselves, and promote healthy growth. And this was as simple as that. And that one we call time-restricted eating, which is now popular as intermittent fasting. And over the last 10 years, there's study after study from our lab and also from all over the world showing that eating within 8, 9, or 10 hours seems to have a lot of different benefits that affects almost every organ system. And those who are healthy, time-restricted eating or intermittent fasting with the right nutrition can promote muscle growth, sustain actually muscle mass, reduce our fat mass, And in athletes, it can even increase or sustain athletic performance for many, many days or years. And there is some studies showing that intermittent fasting can reduce the growth of tumors. So that's why it can reduce the risk of cancer, and also those who already had cancer. Studies are now showing that just eating within 10 to 11 hours, not even 8 hours, is enough to reduce the risk of relapse, cancer relapse. And then the good news is intermittent fasting alone seems to extend lifespan. Of course, we cannot test it in humans, but at least in laboratory animals like rats and mice, it increases lifespan. But what is more exciting is recently Joe Takahashi's lab showed that when you give a pro-longevity diet to mice, the mice live 10% longer. But when he combines intermittent fasting with this pro-longevity diet, mice live not 10% longer, 35% longer. So it's more than double of what they were living. So that's why we're excited that intermittent fasting, this one simple idea, can be combined even with many other treatments, many other pro-longevity things that you want to adopt to extend your lifespan. Undoubtedly, this will add billions of healthy years to society and also a lot of healthcare savings. But on a very personal note, what we feel that this simple habit will help everybody to feel clear, strong, and be ready every single day. Then the last part is the timing of exercise. We know exercise is good, whatever time you are doing it. But the science of circadian rhythm is showing that there seems to be a sweet spot. So research from Basel and Stockholm showed that late afternoon exercise gives you much more benefit than the same workout in the morning. And in fact, people who have diabetes, if they exercise in the late afternoon, they better control their blood glucose than the same diabetic patients when they exercise in the morning. And more importantly, late afternoon exercise also is associated with reduced risk for fall and injury, which is good for everybody, from elite athletes to older adults. So now you might be wondering, I haven't talked about sleep. I'm not telling you to sleep more, because when you adopt this habit of enough daylight, dimming down light at night, intermittent fasting, or exercising enough during day, then sleep takes care of itself. A body makes you to fall asleep at the right time and for the right duration. And when sleep is fixed, it fixes your memory, metabolism, and immune system. But the thing is, this is not only about habit. We're finding that circadian rhythm or this intermittent fasting and all this timing also relates to what time of the day or evening you're taking medications, you're getting your vaccines, or even you are getting a surgery. So for example, those who slept well for 1 week, just 1 week, and then getting their vaccination for any vaccine in the morning, get the best benefit from vaccination than the same vaccine taken in the late afternoon. And then for many cancer patients, what is becoming more interesting is certain chemotherapies work much better in the morning, and other chemos actually work much better in the afternoon. And certain heart surgeries done in the late afternoon has much better long-term benefits than the same heart surgery done by the same group in the same hospital in the morning. So the bottom line is, this new revolution is bringing a new concept, that is treatment at the right time for the right person, and that's called chronomedicine. So you might think that this is too simple, but your life is not simple, right? We get that. We think that we also know that the same plan may not work for everybody. Men and women may need different plans. Teenagers, young mothers, pregnant women, those who are going through perimenopause or menopause, and people with special nutrition needs, people who are doing night shift or day shift work, and those who travel frequently, all of us, we need our personalized plan. And this is where my group and many other groups are trying hard to figure out what is the optimum plan. So at Salk Institute, we are doing many of these clinical studies focusing on figuring out what is the optimum plan for, say, 24 hours emergency workers or athletes who are on brutal schedule to perform in different cities in a week, or older people who have difficulty falling asleep. We are also partnering with organizations, professional as well as in industry, because there is a massive amount of data being collected longitudinally with repeated testing. And this data is slowly helping us to develop new AI models so that in a few years, or maybe tomorrow, you'll have an AI agent telling you or personalizing and optimizing your own schedule. But to bring it back, what can you do today? So let's focus on what we can do today. So after waking up, wait for at least an hour. You can wait a little bit longer even for your first meal. Because when you wake up, our hormones are not in balance to help us digest and absorb that nutrient well. And then try to use 8 hours, 9, 10, 11, or maximum 12 hours of consistent eating window. And most people try to shrink it to 6 hours or 8 hours, but in most of our clinical studies, what we're finding is 10 hours is the sweet spot. That's where you can still have your social life, and you can still enjoy life, and it gives you the same benefit or similar benefit as eating within 8 or 9 hours. And then during daytime, don't forget to get at least 1 hour of light. And if you're smart enough, then you can combine your exercise with outdoor activity so that you get exercise and light at the same time. And 2 to 3 hours before bedtime, that's when you should dim down your light, and that's also the time when the kitchen should close. Because when you do all of this together, then you can sleep much better. You'll get at least 7 to 8 hours of restful sleep. So I think this can be a good plan, and all of us can adopt it. But I challenge that those who are not already doing it, try to do it, try to use your circadian driving skill for at least a month. Because after a month, after you master this habit will actually drive you to that 100 years healthy mark. Thank you.